Hello, everyone, and welcome to the next session in the Buyer Insights and Intelligence series. My name is Andrew Gaffney. I'm Editorial Director with Command Gen Report. Really glad you could join us for this next session. It's going to be a good one. We've talked a lot already in the sessions so far in the series about how important focusing on buying groups is in this current climate as opposed to individual leads. I think we're seeing a lot of our readers talk more about that, especially those that are focused on ABM strategies. So this session is going to be on using data and insights to build personalized buying experiences and drive higher engagement with buying groups. And we've got a great speaker for you. We're trying to make all the sessions as much of an interactive conversation as possible, so we really encourage you to share some of the statistics and findings that you're going to see in the session. We'll be monitoring social media, LinkedIn and Twitter. If you could use the hashtag BII20, you can see also on your screen some of the handles that you may want to include in some of the things you post. We'll be reposting some of those, responding to any questions and comments as well. So please take part. This presentation will run for about 30 or 40 minutes, and then we'll take time for Q&A at the end. We encourage you to go ahead and type in any questions you have as they come to mind. You can do that right in the Q&A tab in the On24 platform. If we don't get a chance to answer all the questions, we'll ask our speaker to follow up with you folks directly. Also within the platform, you'll see there's an area on the bottom right there where you can download related resources on today's topic, and then you can also monitor social media right on the left side as well. One of the frequently asked questions we get is about the session, access to the session. It is being recorded. All registrants will get a link to go back and review the content or also share it with their peers. So without ado, let me introduce you to today's speaker. Nipul Chokshi is VP of Marketing at Dun & Bradstreet. I've had the good fortune of working with Nipul over the years. I'm one of the really smart folks in the B2B space. In his role, he's responsible for integrated marketing, product positioning, and sales enablement. Prior to D&B, Nipul was built and ran the solutions marketing and sales enablement functions at Yammer, which was acquired by Microsoft back in 2012. Prior to Yammer, he led product management and marketing at Marketo and Merced Systems, which was acquired by Nice Systems. On a personal side, Nipul had a bachelor's degree in electric engineering from Cornell University and also an MBA from the University of California, Berkeley, Haas School of Business. And in his free time, he enjoys great wine and food and is an avid runner in the San Francisco Bay Area where he lives. So Nipul, thank you very much for joining us today and sharing your thoughts on this topic, and let me turn it over to you to get started.
Thanks, Andrew. Really excited to be here today, everyone. At D&B, in our marketing org, I feel like I have probably the best job in the world. I have the good fortune of working with some of the smartest marketers out there, from big brands like Akamai, Adobe, Dell, Citrix, HP, and so on and so forth. What I want to do today is really share their stories. You know, all of us as B2B marketers are looking to make an impact when it comes to pipeline and revenue objectives for our organization. And all of us are looking to really, when it comes to engaging with our buyers, to drive that engagement in a more personalized, in a more relevant way. And so what I'd like to do today is really talk to you about some of our learnings in working with our customers and share some tips, tricks, tactics that our customers have used with regards to how data and insights can enable you to build personalized buying experiences. And so just a little bit of a roadmap for how the content for the webinar for today. I'll start out with a little bit of context, share a few frameworks about how you can use various signals to drive one-to-one buyer journeys, account-based marketing, whatever you might want to call it, and then dive into some really nitty-gritty examples based on what we've seen our customers do, and then we'll round things out with a Q&A. And so all of us in 2020, there are a variety of different initiatives that we've been pursuing in support of driving pipeline and revenue for our respective companies. Whether it's making our marketing more agile, whether it's developing customer-led buyer journeys, whether it's simplifying our tech stack, scaling our account-based marketing efforts. There are a wide range of initiatives that all of us are pursuing to, in effect, transform our go-to-market so that we can be customer first. Now, obviously, as per the current events that are happening, there are challenges. There are a significant set of disruptions that we're now faced with. A couple of stats here just kind of bring this home, right? I don't know about most of you, but most of our meetings are now virtual, including from a sales standpoint. Most meetings are effectively done via Zoom, if you will, or some other video conferencing system. At the same time, buyers aren't necessarily in always kind of a buying mode, if you will. A lot of industries and a lot of segments, buyers have shifted back in terms of, where they are in the buyer journey. And so as marketers, it's important that we're able to take this into account as we engage on our transformation initiatives, as we engage to actually engage with our buyers. Now, fact of the matter is, all of us in one form or another, we're already down the path of adopting account-based marketing. And again, whether you call it one-to-one buyer journeys, whether you call it customer-based journeys, whether you call it account-based marketing or marketing to accounts, it really is kind of doing the same thing, which is all about making sure that you're aligned with your sales counterparts on which accounts and contacts to target, and then making sure that that engagement that happens is very personalized and very relevant. Whether you do it on a one-to-one basis or one-to-few basis or even a one-to-many basis. The idea here is that this is kind of a wave that's already been started, and with the current events that are happening with COVID and whatnot, that wave is just accelerating. In addition to this, there was a stat that McKinsey had put out where they surveyed revenue leaders back in April of this year. One of the key findings of the report was, everybody, like an overwhelming majority of those surveyed indicated that digital interactions were twice as important now in current, when it comes to engaging with customers and prospects. And so, this is just kind of a trend that's continuing to accelerate. And in order to stand out in the more crowded digital space as a brand, it's really important that you're focused on, kind of the right target audience, as well as making sure that you're, driving that engagement with as relevant as an offer as possible. And it goes without saying that doing account-based marketing is something that drives value, not just in terms of click-throughs, email clicks, meetings that are generated, all can be kind of lumped into kind of this big bucket called engagement, but also just in terms of outcome metrics, right? Things like pipeline and revenue. These are just a couple of stats that, we've observed from our customer base, over the last few years in terms of the value that they've seen as a result of leveraging account-based marketing as part of their go-to-market strategy. And ultimately, when it comes to doing account-based marketing, what our customers are doing is really three things. First, it really is about segmenting and identifying, what are the target buyers that you're going to be going after. Not just the list of accounts, but the specific people within those accounts as well that you want to earn, whose business you want to earn, who you want to make sure is retained and renew from, and so on and so forth. Once you kind of have that aligned list of buyers, it's all about activating engagement. And the key thing here is you want to be relevant in terms of that activation. So the messages and the offers that you drive are very much personalized, but at the same time, you want to make sure that you're engaging across different channels as well, whether it's through your digital ad channels, paid social, email, leveraging your SDR channel, field sales channel, and so on and so forth. And then finally, measurement. It's really important to kind of see, what's working and what's not. As we, invest more in our account-based programs, being able to see which tactics are driving engagement, which tactics aren't, it's really critical in order for us to be able to say, where we should be doubling down and where we should be pulling back from an investment standpoint. And so double-clicking a little bit on kind of that first component around segmentation, ultimately the idea here is when it comes to surfacing accounts and contacts that you want to engage with, goes without saying, you want to look at a variety of different attributes, right? So first, from a fit standpoint, how closely do they actually resemble your ideal customer? In terms of their profile fit, right? What industry are they in? What's the size of the company? Where are they located? What geographies? Also things like what kind of technologies do they have? Maybe they have technologies that are part of your partner ecosystem if you're in the tech industry. Maybe they have a certain type of credit profile credit profile attribute that you can look to as well. So fit is kind of a critical attribute there on which you want to do the segmentation in terms of understanding who your ideal lists of buyers should be that you're engaging in your program. What you want to do then on top of that is layer on intent. Intents become very much a hot topic among us B2B marketers of late. Fact of the matter is, intent signals, are really great indicators of interest. What kind of interest in terms of, whether someone's interested in a particular subject or topic or a piece of content, right? As well as what that content is, gives us a lot of insight in terms of, and knowledge about the buyer and what they might be actually interested in. And then lastly, this is something that a lot of folks in the financial services industry have done typically, but I think it's coming more and more to the forefront, especially, if you're going after SMBs, for example, where a lot of SMBs may be at financial risk these days. The idea is you want to be able to look at risk metrics in terms of a company's ability to pay, in terms of the location of the company and kind of, what kind of, local shelter-in-place restrictions are in place and how that might impact their business. So the idea here is these risk metrics are really critical, in order to make sure that as part of your segmentation, to include as part of your segmentation strategy, so that you're incorporating kind of that profitability measure. So defining what a good account and contact looks like. It's not just about, kind of how closely they resemble your ideal customer in terms of the profile attributes or the type of interest that they're exhibiting, but also risk, and how profitable a customer they could actually be. And so what a lot of our customers are doing is really kind of a combination of fit plus intent plus risk, to really be able to surface and bubble up accounts and contacts that the sales and marketing teams should be pursuing for their business. And so once you have that list of accounts and contacts that you want to go after, you want to actually engage them. And the tactics that you're going to use, the messages that you're going to use, it's really going to be based on a combination of fit and timing. What part of the buyer journey are they actually in? This is just an example of what one of our customers has done is they've basically split out the buyer journey on the x-axis into, four kind of high-level stages. Someone's not in market, someone's in market, someone's engaged with their brand anonymously on their website, and then someone's engaged with them, but they know who they are, meaning they've actually been cookied by their website property, right? And so the idea here is they're able to use third-party intent signals to be able to assess whether someone's not in market or in market, kind of the earlier stage of the buyer journey. And then they're able to use, de-anonymization capabilities to be able to say, okay, are they actually engaged with us on our website? And then obviously, leveraging their marketing automation system, and kind of based on when people fill out forms, click on emails and things like that, they were able to look at, whether someone's engaged there. And the idea here is that once you are able to understand kind of your universe of target accounts and kind of place them at various stages of the buyer journey, you can engage them with various tactics. Again, just kind of, there are a variety of different ways to do this, but in this customer's example, what they're saying is basically, okay, if it's someone that's in market, obviously I want to show them an ad, but they were actually approaching it from the perspective of, okay, this is a high fit target buyer. And so what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to spend more when it comes to getting in front of them, because I know that, the likelihood that they're going to convert into a customer is relatively high. And so it's not just a matter of showing an ad and bidding high to make sure that the ad gets seen, but also using the paid social channel, also making sure that the SDRs are doing outreach proactively to these accounts. That's in contrast with accounts that are, probably in market, but, they may be lower fit, in which case, rather than spend all that, spend all the dollars and the SDR resources and mind share kind of engaging with those accounts, it's more a matter of, maybe just sending a marketing email, where you're customizing based on like company name and the person, maybe doing some industry level. I think they started doing some industry level segmentation there to kind of do some measure of personalization there. But it was just basically engaging with that prospect through the email channel. So the idea here is when you want to engage with your buyers, you want to use various signals in order to be able to say, okay, what stage of the buyer journey are each of the accounts and contacts within your target account ABM program, and then engaging with them through various tactics. And so obviously intent signals play a very critical role here. And this is the exciting part about leveraging intent data, is intent gives you a really good sense of not only what are the topics or messages or areas of interest that our buyers are expressing, but also, what stage of the buyer journey are they in? This is another framework that another one of our customers uses, where what they'll do is they'll actually, when they think about intent, it's not just third-party signals, meaning it's not just interactions that their buyers are having on third-party websites that aren't owned by their brand. Typically this is data from various vendors. D&B provides this data, Bombora, TechTarget, and so on and so forth. But then on top of that, what they'll also do is they'll look at intent that's actually expressed on their own properties. Whether it's anonymous intent, so someone who's browsing their website anonymously without necessarily raising their hands. They might be using the incognito version of their browser, or they haven't necessarily filled out a form or whatnot. So that's one signal, kind of one example of first-party intent that they're able to layer on top of that. And then obviously, probably the strongest indicator of intent, which is someone who actually fills out a form, right? And once they've filled out a form, you have the ability to cookie those folks, and the idea is then you can, you know who they are, and you can track kind of their engagement on your properties there. And the idea here is by using a combination of all of these signals, they're able to get a more accurate picture of what stage of the buyer journey each of their target accounts is actually in. And this is just an example of, what I was saying earlier. There's really different types of intent, and even within third-party intent signals, to be able to identify folks who, again, might not be engaging with your brand, but are actually expressing interest based on interactions on third-party websites. There are a variety of different types of intent signals that are available through various vendors. One is topic-based intent, where kind of the vendor comes to you and says, I've got a taxonomy of keywords or topics, and you tell me what keywords or topics you're interested in, and I'll tell you what domains. Company domains are actually expressing interest in that. And that's probably the broadest source of intent signals that are available. But again, it's based on, you're kind of left to the topics or keywords that the vendor provides. And so if you're in various industries where, the vendor might not have certain keywords that might be very niche, that might not be as useful. Research-based intent, so this is based on the people, kind of like a tech target type offering, where, you have the exact insight in terms of, the specific articles as well as the specific people who are actually doing that engagement and expressing intent. So that's another, type of intent that our customers use. And then finally, there's just personalized intent, where the idea is that, you kind of have a set of keywords that are very relevant to your business. And then, kind of the vendor will take those keywords, create a predictive model out of it, and, tell you specific locations and buying centers that are, expressing interest. And the advantage here is it's not just a matter of, based on your keywords, so it's personalized, but it's also based on your fit criteria. So, it's not a matter of anybody who's expressing interest that you might be interested in. You specifically are interested in people who are high fit, folks who are, resemble your customer base very closely. And so the idea here is that even when it comes to third-party intent, there are a lot of different types of intent signals. And what we're finding is customers are able to use it's more of an and conversation in terms of leveraging, all three signals together in order to get the best, kind of picture of what stage of the buyer journey their buyers are in. And so what I want to do is shift gears and so with that, what I want to do is shift gears and just drill down and walk through some very specific examples from our that our various customers have done as part of their efforts. And the first one that I'm going to cover is how intent signals can enable you to personalize your digital tactics. And so this is an example. I've kind of anonymized it to protect the innocent, as it were. But the idea here is this is a company that sells that sells security software, cloud security software. And so the idea here is that they're able to leverage the interest that their target buyers are expressing, to not just find out who's in market for a solution that they're selling, but also what specific part of the solution they might be interested in, or what use case they might be interested in. In this example, it's more a matter of whether they're expressing interest in kind of mobility software versus so being able to protect remote workers with secure software versus just cloud-based solutions. And the idea here is that you have the ability to customize and show the relevant ads based on the type of interest that they're expressing. The other piece of this is it's not just about personalizing the engagement based on the type of interest that they're expressing, but it's also the case that you want to be smarter about how you're bidding, right? So the idea here is you may want to show an ad to your entire target market, but for the folks who are kind of your A and B accounts, you want to pay a little bit more, right? Because you want to because those are higher value prospects to you as a business. And so you might want to just bid higher. I just kind of put in some example bids here, but in this particular customer example, they were actually bidding 2x on, kind of their A and B targets versus their C and D targets. And the idea here is they were able to just, they didn't get an increase in budget, but they were able to just reallocate their budget appropriately based on, who they were targeting in order to make sure that they were making the best use of their digital dollars. And then finally here, it's a similar example. The idea here is they didn't just do this at the top of funnel. They also leveraged their first-party intent signals to be able to, again, allocate and target their, their buyers via retargeting campaigns, right? So depending on what part of the website they visited, they would show them certain, types of ads. And at the same time, depending on whether they were, high-value prospects versus low-value prospects, they would, change up their bids in a commensurate fashion. So that's an example of how intent signals, how customers can leverage intent signals in order to drive, smarter digital engagement. I want to shift gears now and walk through another set of examples, which is really around sales outreach. Account-based marketing, it really, I believe it's a misnomer. It should really be account-based marketing and sales. Sales is absolutely a critical, channel through which you want to engage with your buyers. All the while, your digital tactics are either providing air cover and supporting content, right, to drive that engagement with the buyers. And so what I want to do is talk about how some of these signals, and some of these attributes about your buyers and insights about your buyers, you can empower your sales reps with those in order to make sure that they're, kind of spending their time in as effective a way as possible. And so what a lot of our customers will do is, as part of, as part of their account-based marketing program, when it comes to figuring out who their target accounts are, what they'll do is they'll use predictive analytics to score and prioritize all their target accounts, identify the A's, B's, C's, and D's, if you will, based on their fit. How relevant are they, or how closely do they match their existing ideal customer profile? And so the idea here is they'll not just kind of show those propensity ratings to the sales reps and the SDR teams within Salesforce, within Outreach, whatever tools that the reps will use, But then on top of that, they'll also provide additional insights. And so one of our customers, for example, they're running an ABM program in order to drive cross-sell opportunities within their customer base. And so, they'll basically show their sales reps, here are kind of for a particular product, here are the customers that are most likely to buy. And that's indicated kind of by that lattice rating column on this screen here. The A's are most likely to buy this particular product, B's are less likely, C's are even less likely beyond that. And so the idea is that the sales rep can then prioritize their time based on that. But then on top of that, it would also give an estimate in terms of what the estimated deal size is based on what other customers that are similar to each of these companies have bought with them in the past. So essentially giving them kind of a proxy for what the addressable market opportunity is within each and every one of their accounts. Again, additional insights that a sales rep can now use in order to, really prioritize and focus where they're going to be spending their time. In addition to helping sales prioritize, a lot of our customers, what they'll do is they'll empower their sales development reps and their field reps with additional deep insights so that the engagement that they're having, the conversations they're having, can be a lot more contextualized, right? So the idea here is to, kind of all the intent signals that they're expressing, for example, on third-party websites. Our customers will make sure that their sales reps, have access to that right within Salesforce Outreach and, all the tools that they use today. The different web pages that they might visit on your website, making sure that each rep knows for each account that they own, what are the different web pages that they've visited. If we know who the people are, also tell them who are the people within those accounts that have actually visited those web pages. If they don't, that's fine. Just, what a lot of our customers will do is they'll just say, okay, this particular account, we've had a surge in visits to the solutions pages, specifically solutions A, B, and C. That, again, gives reps a lot more context as they're getting ready for that outbound call or the email they need to put together. It just gives them a clearer picture of, kind of how they can make that engagement with the prospect as relevant as possible. And so we've seen two examples so far. One is from a digital standpoint, how intent signals can enable you to really take your digital engagement from good to great. And the second example is from a sales standpoint, how you can empower your sales team, your sales development teams with the relevant insights so they can prioritize on the right buyers and make sure that they have enough insight to be able to have more contextual conversation. The last example that I want to cover as part of this session here is really talking about buying committees. If you're selling, high ACV products, I think Serious Decisions did a study on this a few years back where they saw, like, if you've got more than, if your ACV that you're selling for, your contract value is more than $50,000, then it's a good bet that you're selling to a buying committee. I know there's been other studies done as well where, the average number of buyers in the buying cycle is now anywhere between 6 to 14. I think it's like Harvard, HBR, or CEB or Gartner, kind of put out those kind of stats. And so the idea here is I want to walk you through a couple of examples of how some of our customers are thinking about really identifying specific buying centers and, thinking about how to know whether, you've got a buying committee that's actually being formed at your prospect so that you have greater confidence that, they're actually later stage in the funnel. And so the first example of that here is, one of our customers, they sell into, enterprise and mid-market but this more applies to the enterprise for them. And so the idea is, as part of their account-based marketing program, what they'll do is they will leverage D&B to be able to identify and look at all the anonymous traffic that's coming to their website, and D&B is able to de-anonymize it and provide back to them not just kind of the overall domain. It's like someone from Amazon.com, for example, that's actually visiting the website, but because of, because just kind of the way our de-anonymization algorithm works, we can actually tell you down to the individual, subsidiary of Amazon, right? So the example that I'm talking to here specifically sells to, and they've got an ABM program that targets, companies that provide various cloud solutions. And so for them, it's not just important to know that Amazon is coming to their website. Fact is, they really care that it's someone from Amazon Web Services, the Amazon Web Services division of the website. And the idea here is that they're able to use this insight to be smarter, right? So if it's someone that's just from Amazon and, maybe from their retail arm, that's not as important to them as someone who's actually coming from the Amazon Web Services division. And so that's one way in which one of our customers is thinking about really discerning when you're targeting big enterprise companies, whether you've got a decision-making entity that's actually engaging with you or not, so that you can, again, be smarter about how you treat your target buyers. Another way to think about this also, another one of our customers, for example, what they'll do is they will look at various behavioral and intent signals within particular accounts. And so in this particular screenshot, they're using our software to really identify companies where a buying committee has been formed. And that buying committee is really based on a couple of criteria. First, it's obviously at the account level. They're from accounts that they really care about. So in this example, it's accounts that have high propensity to buy a certain type of product, right? They're in a particular, they have a particular profile, meaning, they're a certain size. They have a certain type of partner technology that they've invested in, because again, maybe this vendor, this customer has like integrations with a particular type of technology that they're interested in speaking to and can drive value for the customer. They've expressed, third-party intent in certain signals, just giving you an indication of whether, what topics they're interested in. And then lastly, the fact of the matter is they're able to see on their own website whether you've got different personas that are actually engaging, right? So if you've got, in this example, they're looking to see if, two of the personas that are part of the buying committee, and I'm kind of anonymizing this to, again, protect the innocent here, but let's say there's a finance persona and a data management type persona that you're engaging with. If both of those, if people with those personas are engaging with that brand's website and they've visited more than a certain amount of time, for this particular customer, that to them tells them that's a strong indication that an actual buying committee is formed. And that's actually really valuable insight for their downstreams, for their sales reps to actually know that, right? And so in this example, what they're doing is they're actually calling this a marketing qualified account, which is a signal to sales that, like, okay, we have multiple buyers from the same company that are engaging with us, and as a result, I know that I need to prioritize this hire as part of my work stack. And so this is just another interesting way that we found that our customers are able to look at all of these different signals and to put them together in this way so that they can identify whether there's an actual buying committee that's in play. And this particular customer, it's not just about alerting the customer. What they'll also do is actually kick off some other high-value marketing activities. Whether it's inviting people to a specific conference or whatnot, when direct mail was more feasible, they'd do direct mail and so on and so forth. And so there you have it. Those are three specific examples. How to use intent to take digital from good to great, how to leverage these signals to empower your sales and sales development teams to be more effective, and then lastly, kind of a framework for thinking and some examples for thinking about how to engage with buying committees. The idea here is that in this day and age, it's not just important to look at fit and intent when it comes to bubbling up and surfacing your high-value targets. It's really important to look at the risk measures as well, their ability to pay, their ability to be in business for a long time, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. As well as using various signals to see where people are in the buying journey, and then to engage with them in a more relevant way. And so with that, before we head over to the Q&A section, just want to, there are a couple of offers here that we want to make available for folks. I talked a lot about intent, and one of the things that we are offering is a free assessment where we can give you a sense of, your, buyers that are in market for topics or subjects that based on interest in topics or subjects that are relevant to your business, as well as, kind of an assessment to help you to understand and get a better picture of the risk profile of your pipeline as well. And so you can see the bit.ly links here that can help you to get access to those. With that, I think we're ready for the Q&A portion.
Awesome. This was spot on, Napul. We're hearing nearly every marketer I talk to is using intent in some ways. I think a lot of what I'm hearing is just looking for specific examples on how to use it more strategically. So I thought this was perfect. We've got some good questions coming in already. I want to remind the audience, go ahead and type in any questions that you have. Even if we don't get to all the questions today, we'll steer them over to Napul and ask him to follow up with you folks directly. So let's jump in. Gloria sounds like she works for a company that targets SMB. She asked, how can I apply ABM, to my SMB marketing?
Yeah, great question. And we have many customers that actually leverage ABM tactics to drive engagement within their SMB market. Actually, it's funny, a few months back at Serious Decision Summit, we had Intuit actually speak on this very topic, and I'm happy to share kind of the URL for that as well. That's available online, I believe. But the idea here is you want to be able to leverage these account-based tactics. You can apply those not just to enterprise, but to the SMB space as well. So first, from a prioritization standpoint, looking at leveraging predictive analytics and AI to be able to identify, who your high-fit targets are, who out of those high-fit targets, which ones have the highest or lowest risk, and then, which ones are expressing intent or have expressed interest. And the idea is that while you wouldn't necessarily be able to do one-to-one personalization, what a lot of our customers wind up doing is one-to-few or one-to-many personalization. So with Intuit's case, for example, they talk about how they can personalize the website and the landing pages on their website based on the kind of the industry of the person that's actually visiting, as well as other intent signals. What other places on the website have they actually engaged with? Similarly, when it comes to doing ads, we have another customer where they're able to kind of switch up the ads based on the third-party interest that they've expressed through intent signals.
Awesome. I've got a question from Mark. It sounds like he's heard some concerns about the accuracy of intent. He's asking how accurate is intent data, and are there some sources more accurate than others?
Yeah, and I mean, obviously, intent data, the whole premise behind intent data is to be able to do some sort of, matching, to be able to say like, oh, what company or what domain are they from? And to my example earlier, if you've got intent data where all it returns is a domain name, in the example of a customer where I talked about earlier, where they're looking to sell cloud-based solutions, the decision-making entity is Amazon Web Services and not Amazon. In both instances, the domain that the intent provider might give you back is Amazon.com. If all you're getting is a domain, it's not as accurate, right? It's really important when you're looking at leveraging intent to actually think about, what kind of data are you actually getting from that provider about the buyers, right? It should really be down to the individual location, and buying center level that you should be able to get that data. And so for third-party intent, that's certainly the case. In terms of first-party intent, where you're relying on some sort of de-anonymization capability to be able to tell you what companies are visiting your website, it's a similar story, although I think the bigger issue here, especially with, over the last few months, everybody's been working from home, right? So all of a sudden, everybody on their weblogs is getting a lot of hits from like Comcast.com and ATT.net, right? Because those are all ISPs. And so again, the accuracy of the intent data when it comes to de-anonymizing that web traffic on your website depends on, again, the provider, who's doing the de-anonymization. If all they're doing is providing you with a domain name, or all they're doing is basically just doing a reverse IP lookup based on domain name, you're all of a sudden, like I said, you're going to find that you've got Comcast.com really interested in your product, when in fact it's just someone visiting from their home network. And so what we've found is it's a lot more accurate to bolster that reverse IP lookup with also something more cookie-based, where you can actually look at, based on, the cookies that have been placed on someone's browser, when they actually visited your website, for example, that becomes a more accurate measure of the intent in that instance.
Awesome. All right, great. We had a bunch of questions about ABM, which I know you covered a lot of that in this thing, but I want to make sure we get to some of these. Jen said she's a little over 6 months into her ABM pilot program. She's asking, what are the best metrics for proving to executives in my company whether ABM is working or not?
Yeah, and so account-based marketing, I mean, like all these initiatives, obviously it has impact on kind of the business level or the outcome metrics that everybody cares about, that C-level executives will care about, right? The pipeline and revenue metrics themselves. And depending on who you're applying these tactics to, if you're targeting SMB, and your deal cycles are within 30 days, you should absolutely be using pipeline and revenue as kind of your key indicators in terms of seeing, okay, is this working or not? But if you're selling into the enterprise, where your deal cycles can be anywhere between 9 months to 24 months, you still want to look at and kind of use pipeline and revenue. Those are always good metrics, but those will be more lagging indicators, if you will, because you'll see that those metrics move quite a long time after you've done something. And so what a lot of our customers wind up doing is looking at what are the inputs into that. And a key input into driving pipeline and revenue is things like number of meetings, first meetings that are set up with your target account, the engagement that you're getting with your digital programs. One of our customers, for example, what they do is they look at, for each of their LinkedIn campaigns, not just click-through rates. They'll also look at click-through post-click. How many people from their target accounts actually, filled out a form or took some action after clicking on the ad, so on the resulting landing page. And for those people, they would just say, okay, I'm just going to look at how many of those people were from my target accounts, how many of those people were A and B targets, if you will. So looking at engagement is a really reliable leading indicator for whether your ABM program and the different tactics you're using are working or not. And that generally, again, like the idea here is you don't want to necessarily wait 9 to 24 months, right, in order to prove something out. You want to use these leading indicators as a way to say, okay, directionally, we're headed in the right direction here.
Okay, great. Another question on ABM. Dylan said a lot of the ABM that they've done so far has been more about segmenting and being targeted in their outbound, but he's asking how can ABM work better with my inbound programs?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, so, you know, most of our customers, you know, when they start ABM, they have some sort of inbound program. Some of it, you know, some people it's working really well. Some people it's not working as well, right? And so it's absolutely meant to work in conjunction. So account-based obviously is very applicable. Like a lot of what I talked about is very applicable to the outbound techniques. But a lot of the insights that you use to kind of say, okay, to prioritize where to focus your time, a lot of the insights that you use to kind of contextualize conversations using intent signals to identify what topics people are interested in, to use fit and risk indicators to indicate, you know, how profitable or how good a customer is. You can use those for your inbound programs as well, right? So a lot of our customers, you know, will basically for their inbound leads, they'll use analytics and scoring to be able to say, okay, you know, for this particular lead that raised their hand, what's their fit rating? You know, are they from an A account or a B account or a C account or a D account? And that informs kind of that lead qualification rep's work queue, right? They'll make sure that they get to the A's and the B's a lot faster than they get to the C's and the D's. And oh, by the way, those same insights that I talked about in terms of what kind of interest are they exhibiting and so on and so forth, you can make those available to your reps as well as to your nurture programs. One of our customers actually in the telecom space, what they're doing is they are using those third-party indicators to basically, like if it's someone that's come to their website, they haven't necessarily browsed on their website, but they filled out a form and kind of said, okay, I want to talk to you. You know, they'll obviously queue up that conversation with the SDR, but if that conversation becomes, you know, if that conversation doesn't yield an immediate meeting, they actually have more insights about that buyer now that enables them to put them into a more contextualized nurture program. So rather than kind of a generic nurture program, they'll know, for example, that they're interested in, I'm just making this up, they're interested in like VPN solutions for small businesses. So they have a special nurture program running for that particular topic itself. So a lot of the insights, you know, that you're using to help you to figure out where to focus and how to drive more relevant conversations, you can apply those to your inbound motions as well so that you're making the best use of your resources there.
All right, great. We're getting towards the top of the hour, so I'm going to wrap up. There are some questions we didn't get a chance to get to, but I'll forward those to Napul and ask him to follow up with you directly. Napul, I want to thank you. This, you know, as always, really spot on, really specific and actionable for our audience, so really appreciate your time here.
Awesome, thank you.
Reminder to the audience, our next session in the series is going to be on Keep Your Buyer in Focus, 5 Key Pitfalls to Avoid in Enterprise Class ABM, which will build on a lot of the topics we covered here today. That's tomorrow at 12 noon Eastern. Hopefully you can tune in for that. Another reminder, too, to go back and check out the full agenda. If you missed any of the sessions in the series, you can catch those on demand. And also, as always, share them with your peers. So thank you all for tuning in today. Thanks again to Napul for the great content, and hopefully we'll see you on the next session.